like 90% of adults have experienced some form of trauma. And that's like a kind of more of a clinical definition. But if you think about the fact we all lose people, that we all are treated unfairly, there's this phrase that I like, you can drown in an ocean and you can drown in 6 inches of water.
Hello, welcome to Holistic Ambition. I'm your host, Stephanie Thoma, founder of Holistic Ambition and author of Confident Introvert. Welcome to the place where we talk with visionary leaders about creating a career that is sustainable to your well-being, meaningful, and a lot of fun in the process. So I'm really excited to introduce Brad Wolfe. He is the founder of Reimagine, an events platform and community based on the science of post-traumatic growth, where people of all backgrounds come together to navigate the hardest parts of our existence and inspire one another to live fully in the now. As a nonprofit organization, Reimagine draws on design, art, medicine, and spirituality to transform taboo cultural attitudes around death and grief, and to address the inequities surrounding how we live and how we die. With over 100,000 attendees, Reimagine End of Life festivals have quickly become the largest end of life events in the United States. Reimagine was recently named a world-changing idea by Fast Company magazine. Whoa, okay, well, there's a lot more where that came from that we will get to dive into, how Reimagine came to be. And Brad, I'm so happy that you are here with us today. You know, I started hosting back in the day, I believe it was 2018 when Reimagine was a thing in San Francisco. I hosted a Potluck Connect event and people just loved the opportunity to come together, and they brought dishes commemorating a loved one. And yeah, just thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for hosting that Reimagine event. That is really the spirit of what Reimagine is about, helping people engage their own communities in facing mortality, loss, adversity, and you did that in ways that worked for people in your network. And I'm just so grateful that you're part of our community and that we're connected.
Yes, I'm so grateful for you and your impact. And you know what I think will be really interesting for people tuning in today is we'll certainly get into Reimagine because that is such a robust topic. However, let's actually dive into what got you to found Reimagine. So, you know, we talked in the pre-discussion a little bit about how you studied sociology. I also studied sociology at UC Berkeley. And yeah, that there are a few different things that came up around this post-traumatic growth. And yeah, I'd love to kind of hear from you how those early days of writing research papers on these various topics sort of came together.
Yeah, so it's interesting for me. I mean, I grew up in the Bay Area. My grandparents, were both on my dad's side, were both prisoners in Auschwitz, and my grandma's turning 102 next week, so I'm going to be going down to LA. She's still alive, and just learning of their stories of the kind of the pain and suffering that was inflicted upon them because of a label that was utilized. We utilize these labels of religion to create all this pain. It's like, why is there so much, why do we treat people the way we do in our world when life is so precious and so short? And so I grew up with a pretty deep fear of death, I think, because of learning of my grandparents' stories from just a very early age. My grandfather, in fact, his job was to carry the bodies to and from the crematorium, to have them killed, and then he had to carry them and have them disposed of for 4 years. And so thinking about all the souls that passed kind of under his watch, it's just awful. So I was quite afraid of death. But then my friend, when I was in college, my dear friend Sarah, a girl that I loved growing up, she was diagnosed with a rare form of pediatric cancer. And I started playing music for her by her bedside for about 2 years while she was at Stanford Children's Hospital with this pediatric cancer in her pelvis. And through that experience, just came to realize what it meant to be there for somebody, and also how lucky I was to have music as a vehicle and an outlet that could both provide some healing for Sarah, but could also provide a channel for me to connect with her. And so, after 2 years, she ended up passing away. And at that time, I was finishing up my undergraduate degree and was thinking a lot about all of these themes, to be honest. And it's at a time in my career and our lives where you start thinking about what you want to do. And it just struck me, I had so many friends that I saw starting to enter professional fields that didn't really align with their area of interest or passion. And I myself, who loved music, it was probably my biggest passion, but if I had the privilege and luxury of being, educated at a really top university, and music is not necessarily something you pursue as a career path per se, based when you're a major in American studies, or it just didn't align with what I was studying, and so I ended up doing a master's thesis, to your point, on why do people pursue their career path, and what is this tension that gets in the way of people pursuing what matters most to them. Mm-hmm. And it was called Emersonian Passion versus the American Dream: Aspirational Discordance in the Selection of a College Major. And so it's like, and what I learned was that just that there's a perception of economic success in America that is kind of that American dream, that we can all have this white picket fence and this nice life. And so people really want that, and that drives people toward decision making. On the other hand, in America, there's this pressure to be an individual, to kind of find our own inner passion, and that kind of sense of Emersonian beat to your own drum. And so how do we marry those tensions? And that creates a lot of conflict for some people. And that's why entrepreneurship in our country is really so revered, because it kind of threads that thin line between, Emersonian passion and the American dream, that you can somehow have it all. You can have both if you chart your own path to success. But it's quite sad to me that the way our educational system is set up, that it prevents people from learning about what makes people truly have a meaningful life. And there may be a false perception of economic success and status as a paradigm for what we should be pursuing that dictates all these careers.
Yes, and so Brad, this is such an important topic when it comes. This is a big pillar of holistic ambition, where there has been this sort of ideology of, okay, you need to be successful at the expense of everything that matters to you in your life. And, this kind of brings us to some past experiences that you've had that have been pretty instrumental in showcasing what's truly important. And one of those instances that I would love for you to share with us has to do with your time working with the founder of Zappos, Tony Hsieh, on delivering happiness.
Yeah. So, after I ended up leaving the idea of pursuing academia, to then, because of this project, to really pursue what mattered most to me and honor Sarah, and that was music. And but I realized that we all have our own stories, and everyone should have the opportunity to pursue, what matters most. And so I got involved eventually with Tony Hsieh and his organization, Delivering Happiness, which was a startup within his broader Zappos organization constellation, focused on bringing the science of happiness to people within organizations. And it's interesting. I mean, part of it I thought there's a whole body of literature that is about how to help employees and help ourselves find more deep fulfillment through our work. And and there's different tenets of human motivation that we can draw on, a sense of connection, a sense of progress, et cetera, that we can use to find fulfillment. But I guess ultimately, I found that focusing on happiness is just not really, for me at least, the answer for what really brings fulfillment. And the focus on happiness has some of the same problematic components as does focusing on monetary success. That there's something about authenticity, I think, that maybe is more important than either one. In our culture and our work, if we deny ourselves some of the pain that exists and we keep trying to push away the hard parts of life, we can't really step into what is most meaningful and have an integrated life. So, and a lot, yeah.
Shadow, like that is such, especially in spirituality, there can be this tendency to, law of attraction, what you talk about gives so much weight, in the 3D. So only talk about things that are happy. And, there's this sort of disregard for the shadow, and Reimagine does such a beautiful job of really allowing people to go there in a way and to be able to hold both the really positive, cherished moments with the grief of maybe no longer having those moments, like with your dear friend, Sarah. So, I just wanted to echo here the sort of, poetic nature of being a part of this Delivering Happiness initiative and realizing, okay, there's merit there, but that is not how you are going to leave your unique mark. And I also see there's a diving into what some people perhaps just don't even know how to give words to. So I'm curious, if you were to tie in your experience at IDEO with design thinking, I'm curious where in your timeline that fit in and how that also maybe paved the way for your Reimagine journey.
Yeah, so this is kind of all a direct line. Is after I left Delivering Happiness to focus on a startup, I realized, that just kind of seeing how that organization was taking shape, I felt like I could offer something more like what I was describing, something that was more authentic in the world. And I left to create a startup around that when I was connected with some folks at IDEO who were hiring and looking for somebody to think specifically about the intersection of art, creativity, meaning, and the end of life experience. And there's a design principle. I'm a student of design. And there's a design principle that the closer we get to any problem, the more likely we are to find a ubiquitous solution. So in this respect, if perhaps a lot of my work, in fact, was already motivated by the fact that life is short and precious, and death, I pursued music really because of this loss that I experienced, and was pursuing trying to help create more meaning because of loss, because of what I saw as this impermanence and how palpable that was for me. But I didn't ever think about tying, actually using death as the vehicle to bring this conversation more broadly to people about how to motivate us to a real, true, integrated and mindful awareness of our own impermanence and what that might spark. But if I follow that design principle, that might be the path. So I ended up joining up with IDEO for a bit and actually ultimately really incubating this concept of Reimagine within IDEO. And so we built this brand called Reimagine there and hosted our first almost an experiment or a prototype of a festival that would bring people together from all different backgrounds to open up conversations on the hardest parts of life, really death and loss and grief, and use creativity as a gateway in to attach those conversations to our heart and to something that had more to it than just the logistics of how to help people die, but how might it help us live was really the question. And just seeing all of these events, at first we spawned about 40 events over the span of a couple of days, and attending a dance in a graveyard, or a conversation in a hospice, or a comedy show in a about end of life, or a potluck dinner, where all these people were coming together to talk about what was really painful for them and some of these losses that they'd experienced, not only death loss, but other forms of loss. And seeing the connection and the way in which that some people who attended, years later, I met people who said, "Oh, I quit my job after I attended that experience," or "I ended up deciding to cross something off my bucket list," or "I started repairing a broken relationship that I had." These really powerful stories of transformation. That was the purpose, or the hope anyway, that what this might provide, and that gave me the courage, instead of pursuing that startup on my own, to really take this idea and turn it into a nonprofit organization that I've been leading now ever since. And we've been expanding into thinking about more ways of bringing these ideas to people.
So something that stands out here, there's so many things that stand out, but one of the things that I'd like to emphasize is how you started, speaking of this career journey of yours, with a love of music and not really having a clear idea of how to integrate it into work, but knowing that it was really powerful and something that you loved. And now, on such a large scale, there's this, all around the US. I can also see this potentially being global, like, no doubt, this movement of, like, certainly death is a theme, but so is life, because they are flip sides of the exact same coin. And there's music, so just anyone who's watching right now who has this passion, who thinks, "Oh, I might not be able to monetize that, so it needs to be pushed aside," this is just a beautiful testament to maintaining those artistic passions and inclinations, and finding a way to weave them in for yourself and other people, because surely you're giving comedians an opportunity to maybe speak on a subject matter they don't always speak to. And yeah, I'd love to learn more about your perspective from that angle.
No, I think that's a great question. I feel like, you know, some of the work we did in delivering happiness is applicable to this, that there's this, how do you help define somebody's purpose? And a paradigm that I really like is called, I call it tap into your purpose. Your talent, your talent, and this one is important, plus your anger, plus your passion equals your purpose. And and then you can come up with a purpose statement for your life, for example. So for myself, it might be something like, I want to tap into my creativity and my musical talents, in my anger, to transform the way that we think about, to tap into the kind of the lack of awareness of presence in the world, and human connection, and lean into my passion for bringing people together in various ways. And so maybe that's like a purpose statement. But then once you have a purpose statement for your life, there's many ways to kind of achieve that, right? There's so many, and especially if you can get it the right fidelity, if you maybe take it one level of abstraction higher, you start having more room to play. And so, for example, music is one vehicle, but I found that unlocks for people something deeper. But so does holding space for other people to share stories around loss. I mean, it somehow taps into some of the same creative spirit. So does helping arrange a festival, which is some of the work that we do, or build a platform. It's like, how do you find different ways to integrate the sense of what matters most to you within your workplace? And yeah, so I do bring music to the workplace, and I've, through Reimagine in our festivals, like, I got to play with bands that I loved growing up, like the band Dispatch that I saw, they headlined Madison Square Garden. They ended up sitting in with me on one of my songs at a Reimagine festival, and now at these monthly vigils that we have and host, occasionally I bring my guitar online, and I have a chance to play a song that I wrote for Sarah, to that community. And so we try to find ways to bring in our gifts, but also as the CEO of the organization, I do really encourage people to lean into their gifts and find ways for people to practice whatever it is that gives them vitality.
Yes. And I see so many, it's this holistic cycle in a way of you being able to share your gifts and your stories and creating a platform for so many others to do that in such a big way, including people that you've looked up to in years past and maybe dreamt of being on stage with them and performing. And it's all happening with such purpose and such depth. And, this brings us to one of our closing questions, which is, how do you define, or how would you redefine ambition?
I think ambition on its own accord, I don't ambition by itself is a drive for something, but the question is for what. So I think the what is super important, and that's where I feel like people get lost, and that's why the anger piece in that tap exercise is so important, because if you can figure out what in the world you see as a problem and can take your ambition, your talent, and your purpose, or your passion rather, to move toward and to transform your anger, then you can really find your purpose. And so I feel like ambition needs to be paired with something you can channel it into. And at Reimagine, what we're really focused on is really, again, this idea of channeling our emotions. Because we've all experienced, I think it's 90% of adults have experienced some form of trauma. And that's like a kind of more of a clinical definition. But if you think about the fact we all lose people, that we all are treated unfairly, there's this phrase that you can drown in an ocean and you can drown in 6 inches of water. And so we all have faced hardship in our lives. But what do we do with those emotions? What do we do with the pain that we experience or witness in the world? And if there's a way, and I think really it's through this paradigm of post-traumatic growth, which gives some scientific evidence to how to move forward. But if we can actually channel those emotions positively, we can reshape both our own self and our culture for the better.
Yeah. So really, I'm hearing this emphasis on transmuting pain, the pain that at least 90% of us have experienced or are currently experiencing. And I'm curious, what does holistic ambition mean to you? In a word or in a phrase or a sentence?
I guess, what I'd want it to mean, this is maybe aspirationally, it's to work toward helping alleviate suffering by fully integrating all that life has to offer.
Snaps for that. That is very succinct. And that is such a nugget to leave us with here. And yeah, let's see. So before, I think that most people who have listened to this interview will agree that it's so admirable how you really slice through the surface level things, and you really get to the heart of the matter, the heart of what matters. And, I'd love to invite people to stay connected with you. So what's the best way for them to do that?
I mean, certainly reach out to me if you've seen this, brad@letsreimagine.org, brad@letsreimagine.org. You can check out letsreimagine.org on just period and follow our newsletter. You can also find me on LinkedIn or Facebook, but we'd love to just, connect with you out there. We are also working on a platform, a new offering to provide the scaffolding for any person to move forward from the pain of our experiences to find meaning and growth in our life, both on an individual level, but also on this collective level, by leveraging, again, and distilling down the science of post-traumatic growth into some very consumable nuggets that happen in community. where people are coming together to really work on transforming or transmuting our pain in tangible ways that create a lot of impact and transformation. So if you're interested in something like that, please reach out to me, because we're starting to beta test this new platform, and depending on when you're watching this, and it may already be launched, but we've been working on it for about 2 years and are extremely excited about this new program of ours, in addition to our festivals and the thousands of online events that we host, which you can also join for free. We have a stream of events out there for anyone who has pain or loss or want to investigate or let go of something. Join us online. We have events year round that will work for you and your community.
Thank you so much for your time today, Brad. This has been such an insightful conversation. And I would like to thank everyone at home or wherever you're located. Thank you for watching. And this is your invitation to subscribe to be the first to know of the next Holistic Ambition speaker. And I hope that you have a wonderful day, and until next time.